Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Truck Stop Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Reed, and I am here with my co-host, Mr. Malcolm Smith. And today we are joined by a special guest co-host, Mr. Ferdinand Risco. Let me tell you about this gentleman. I should have said this before I called his name out, but it's nonetheless, his bio and resume is impressive. This gentleman is prior to coming into the private sector, he was the director for one of the largest public transit agencies in the country. Prior to that, he led the Office of Diversity and Inclusion for the ninth largest transit agency in the U.S. He's a phenomenal business coach. He's a government contracting guru and specialist. He's a veteran. He's my friend and my brother, Mr. Ferdinand Risco. Brother, thank you for joining us today.
Mr. Reed, I appreciate you for having me, man. Thanks for that intro.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you here because you have a wealth of knowledge and expertise that you will be able to lend to our topic today, our educational topic today, which is simply the top 10 reasons why trucking companies fail. I know that since you've joined into the private sector, you are, hold on one second, Joe. Okay. You are, I'm sorry. What was I saying?
Since he left the private sector.
Since you came into the private sector, you've been doing some consulting and coaching in the trucking space and in the logistics space. You have numerous clients that you consult across a broad spectrum of things, as well as your sweet spot, which is that government contracting space. You are the government contracting guru, probably the best that I know. So I'm happy to have you here to lend your expertise. And I know we're going to be doing some things together that we're going to talk about a little bit later in this episode as well. Anything you'd like to share before we dive into this educational segment today?
No, as always, it's I appreciate you having me on. Good to see you, Brother Malcolm.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too.
Always a pleasure to share space with you gentlemen. I'm excited about this topic. My entire career has been up and down the supply chain, private sector, government, public sector, you name it, from Airborne Express before it became DHL, Pepsi. I've been moving boxes, people, soda, and things for a long time.
Right.
So, when you mention transit, people are like, well, why am I listening to this guy? Well, the supply chain is the supply chain, and we've been thankful to have many of our clients that are in the transportation, distribution, and logistics space. So hopefully we can lend a bit of expertise to this conversation.
Excellent. So for our listeners' sake, let's dive into this really important subject, the top 10 reasons why trucking companies fail. There's numerous reasons, but these are the ones that we found to be the most important and impactful. So we're going to dive right into this. All right. Our top 10 reasons trucking companies fail. Number one, a lack of proper planning and budgeting. One of the main reasons that trucking companies fail is due to a lack of proper planning and budgeting. Without a clear and detailed plan in place, it is difficult for a trucking company to succeed in the competitive trucking market.
Yeah, Kevin, if I could jump in and take this one, the first thing I tell all of my clients is, what's the plan? And as much as we don't want to deal with it, the business plan is absolutely positively the way to go to help you plan your path forward. As we all know, it's a 3 to 5 year look ahead, but the most important thing is it makes you ask or answer all of the questions that are going to come up for every piece of your business. And I tell you that if you can't get through the business plan or you can't answer all of those questions, then you might need to take an opportunity to really hone in on why you can't answer those questions. It's that piece of planning. It's that kind of time, effort, and energy that business owners need to do to answer those questions. Now, remember, there's no right or wrong way to write your business plan. But, some statistics show that upwards of 80% of businesses do not have a business plan. 80%. And so you think about it. Now, does that mean that you can't be successful? No. But if we're talking about reasons that companies don't make it to be an ongoing concern or don't make it to year 2 or year 3, it's generally because there's no plan in place. And some of these other topics that we'll talk about will point to the business plan, yes, or can be solved in the business plan. So it's really important to take some time to plan through it.
Now, as a coach, and we've worked together in some my master class a year or so ago, do you make it mandatory for the people that you coach, your clients, to write a business plan?
Yeah, for my clients, that is an absolute must. And it's for a few things. Nobody can sell your story or sell your story or tell it like you can. And so if you can articulate it, if you can tell somebody about it. Now, maybe you're not the best at writing or grammar and all that other stuff. Don't let that, deter you. You just got to get it out of your head, right? And there's a few of those key sections, that you have to really think about. And we'll talk about some of the issues that people come across and reasons why trucking companies fail. There'll be sections of the business plan.
Absolutely.
And so we'll talk about that later on today, but I promise you that if you can get through your planning to include the financial section, right? That's the budgeting piece. Then you'll know what you're up against, and you'll know what you need to do as you have these milestones and you track your path forward to success.
And I'm going to just, if I could just add something so wonderfully stated. I require it when I do consulting sessions, because I just simply say, you've got to master your own business. And if you don't go through this process, how are you going to know what you're doing? And how can you possibly master your business if you haven't prepared yourself? So thank you for that, sir.
Yes.
The number 2 reason trucking companies fail is insufficient capital. A lack of adequate funding is a common reason that trucking companies fail. It can lead to an inability to cover operating expenses, invest in growth, opportunities, or weather unexpected financial setbacks. I call trucking the black hole. It's where money goes to die. Starting a trucking company, you constantly are it's cash intensive at every level. Everything costs. Mistakes, I always say mistakes in this industry cost money. All the mistakes cost money. So, if you've purchased a truck, tires, insurance, fuel, everything costs money. Mistakes with a load, everything costs money. This goes back to the business plan. Because if you don't do the business plan, you don't know how much capital you're going to need in order to weather through these storms, or what to prepare for, what your expenses, and tracking your expenses and things of that nature. It's all done at the very beginning. And it's identifying that, and you got to know, you got to have money to come into this. If you don't have capital, I mean, I've had people that I've met over the years in the association that they want to get into trucking. They don't have any credit, they don't have any capital, they don't have any know-how, but they want to get into a business that is, this thing will just beat you up. It will beat you up. So it goes back to the very first reason that trucking companies fail is a lack of planning and budgeting, which you so eloquently spoke on, Mr. Risco.
And Kevin, if I could, one of the things that you can use your business plan for it's a living, breathing document, don't forget, but you also use it to get funding. And so when you talk about access to capital, one of the first things anybody with money is going to ask you is what's your plan? And they want to see that you have thought through it. So, number one goes great with number two, and you use number one to get number two in some cases.
Right. And I know one of those areas that we're all familiar with is the set-asides for minorities, women, veterans. I literally tell people there's billions of dollars in set-aside opportunities that are waiting for minorities, women, and veterans. But in order to get that, to do those things, to go to the next level, got to have a business plan, got to have capital, got to attract investors, which is all tied together. All this is tied together. And it tied into some other things that we'll be talking about, understanding how to go out and bid in order to make those things happen. Excellent. Malcolm, did you have any thoughts on that as well?
Oh, no. You ever heard the expression when the OGs are talking, you just soak in the game? Hey,
All right, gotcha. Thank you. Number 3, poor management and leadership. Ineffective leadership, decision-making, and a lack of management skills can contribute to business failure. A business owner's abilities to lead, delegate, and make strategic decisions is critical. We just did, in our previous segment, we did a whole segment and episode on leadership and organizational culture and poor management. This is what I say is the biggest issue that the trucking company has. This is the biggest issue facing the trucking industry, and that's leadership. From the largest corporations down to the 1-2 truck operation, every organization and every business is a reflection of its leadership. And I've never seen an industry with such horrendous leadership at every level. This is really the biggest thing that's plaguing trucking, and that's leadership. We want to talk about driver turnover. We want to talk about all the things that are, it's leadership. It just starts with that. That's the foundational thing that I said in our previous episode that determines whether or not your trucking company will succeed or fail. Number 4, economic downturn. The trucking industry is sensitive to economic fluctuations. During economic downturns, there may be a reduction in demand for freight services, impacting a company's revenue. We could go in for days here. Why this is important, and this is a critical thing, because we have to understand how to diversify in trucking. We come into the industry and we think, the path of least resistance. We come in, we think in general freight, we think in dry van. We don't study the industry. We don't study the economy. We don't subscribe to industry publications, which give us great insight on what's happening in the economy. I always tell clients, how do you get into an industry and you don't study the industry? You don't become a master or a subject matter expert on the business that you've just invested and decided to go into. Once again, it goes back to we're not reading. We don't care to read and learn and educate ourselves. So by doing simple things like subscribing to industry publications, they have a tendency to give you insight on where the trends are. What's happening at ports around the city, what's happening with global trade. These are the things that determine where freight's coming from, how much is coming, how much is slowing down, and it allows us to see what's going to impact us and our ability to provide for our families or keep our businesses moving. So this is where we see economic downturn, and when we see it, we're able to brace and prepare for it. And then if we diversify, understand different sectors of trucking, and if one area is slow, I can pivot over to another one. I can get involved in some other aspects of the industry that will allow my trucks to continue to move, and I can keep revenue coming through the door. So again, economic downturn as we're seeing right now. And then here's a big thing, and it goes back to another topic we're going to talk about, your inability to sell. Economic downturn means if I come into the industry and I only get business from the load board, I have no control over nothing. I have no ability to go out and sell directly to shippers and get my own business. And here again, we see the crucial impact of that right now as truckers are struggling. Load boards, there's no freight on the load boards, and they're crying, they're struggling, they're parking their trucks, they're selling their trucks, and they're getting out of the industry because we see truly an economic downturn right now. And what can we do to change that? What can we do to increase our revenue in such times as this?
I want to speak on that as well. So as far as you said gathering information and being a part of the industry publications, the one thing like for dump trucking, what I try to do a lot is stay involved and see what's going on. So for an example, we're in Atlanta. Atlanta, we're getting the World Cup in 2026. That's
Mhm.
going to bring, they don't want another situation from the Olympics. So, that's going to take us paving the roads, having the roads as immaculate as possible when we start to get all this traffic. As well as I did some research that, and don't quote me on these numbers, but 123 people move to Atlanta every day, which is the reason why we're expanding the highways.
Wow.
Also the infrastructure bill. So doing that industry knowledge and learning those things will kind of help you see where you should be going in your business and give you avenues to say, hey, maybe I need to, switch this and go, in trucking, maybe dry van or reefer, but in dump trucking, it could be maybe I need to stick with asphalt. Maybe I need to do more things with gravel or dirt. So just knowing where your industry is really does help you kind of tell you where you need to go in direction with your business.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, Brother Malcolm, I tell you, I'm always very impressed with your foresight, looking at the industry, particularly in the dump truck space.
Mhm.
And you're right. If you don't look at things like the announcement of the World Cup, headquarters coming here,
Mhm.
and if you're not 2, 3, 4 years out and you wait for an RFP to come out, you're
Mhm.
probably too late, right? And so when we talk about government contracting and diversifying the business and handling economic downturns, access to capital, if hopefully the listeners will see that there's a common theme through all of this: planning, being engaged in industry, and also having your eye on horizon. So I can tell you it's your kind of forethought to look at those kinds of things that are it's going to continue to breed success for you.
Yeah, you're right.
All right. Number 5, intense competition. The trucking industry is highly competitive, with many small and large players vying for contracts. Price wars and undercutting can lead to reduced profit margins for trucking companies.
So speaking of the dump truck space, I feel like that's one of the reasons why the pricing hasn't been the rates that we're being given hasn't succeeded around 125 and higher because you have a lot of competition that comes in and undercuts. If an industry base rate is 100, but somebody say they'll do it for 90, of course the construction company is going to say, hey, okay, we're going to give you the job. Now they don't know what type of company they're getting to perform that work, but you have people who will undercut prices just to get jobs and because of the competition. And so what I say do is define find your niche, find your avenue, and you have to learn how to sell, which was, we're going to go back to that. But when you have a bunch of competition, you have to that's when you have to tighten your skills and really learn how to sell and go out and gain business. I say when I started in dump trucking, the competition was fierce, where I was calling companies every single day as time went on, people start retiring. Every year, a company say take 25 trucks out of the industry to where now these companies are calling us. So just knowing the landscape of your competition, who's the biggest players in the game, what do I have to do to get in? Who's the gatekeeper? You do have to look at these things, because competition will keep you out of the game. Like it's yeah, it was tough when I first got into it, but just learning how to sell and sharpening your skills will get you, the business that you want.
Yeah, and it's no different in the 18-wheeler sector. A lot of people don't realize that when you go out here and it's extremely competitive because you've got all the big companies are vying for the same piece of work that the small guy is. I've had to compete against the largest brokers and carriers trying to go and get business, and it's all the same. It's a war out there. So as I always say, if you don't know how to sell, if you don't know how to go out and go directly to shippers and get business, you're going to find it very difficult and almost impossible in today's market to survive. And again, I'm going to plug our upcoming webinar, and we'll talk about this for in it, called Relationship Selling and how to bid on trucking contracts. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right. Number 6, driver shortage. Oh, my goodness. A shortage of qualified and reliable truck drivers is a pervasive issue in the industry. A lack of skilled drivers can hinder a company's ability to fulfill contracts and meet delivery schedules. Brother Risco?
Yeah. So, the coveted CDL is in high demand. And so it's not only folks that are driving over the road or 18-wheelers. You're also required to have a commercial driver's license to drive a transit bus. And so there's other industries that are competing for CDL drivers. And so each of those has their own individual headaches with them. But the bottom line for, the audience is you've got to attract, recruit, and then retain the best and the brightest. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the listeners are going to be folks that started out as, operators and drivers themselves, and now have gone to, be owner operators and business owners. Well, remember what it's like to sit in a seat, and so you're going to have to pay to play, right? What is it that you can do to build a relationship with a potential hire versus it being just a transaction, right? Mm-hmm. And we've seen over time, in my previous life, I led the Workforce Development Committee for a national transportation organization. And across the country, we see this shortage. And so what can you do to differentiate yourself to the best and the brightest? Because those folks have options. And what you don't want to do is have somebody, leave your truck on the side of the road because, somebody paid them 25 cents more an hour, right? Right. Develop the relationship, make them a part of the business, make them a stakeholder. And we have found that type of relationship goes a lot farther than the transactional.
You know what that leads back to? Leadership. It goes back to leadership. It goes back. See, here's the thing that I find in all my years of teaching. All of this stuff is connected. It's all connected. It's all relevant. Everything that we talk about here on this show that we're teaching is all relevant. We did a episode that, our previous episode, episode 2, we did leadership and organizational culture. And again, it goes back to what I said earlier. The number one thing that's plaguing the trucking industry is leadership. Why are we not able to recruit and retain drivers? It's about leadership. It's about building a culture and a place where drivers want to work. We talk about a shortage of drivers. What we have is a high driver turnover. That's the big issue. So my question is, why do drivers bounce from one company to the next, There's drivers out here, but why do we leave? Why are we leaving? And I'm talking about the largest, the Schneiders and the Werners, and drivers are bouncing. They're bouncing and leaving because there has to be something wrong with the culture. They're not happy. People don't leave places that they're happy. So we have an issue with a driver shortage, and it's plagued with the leadership issue. So that's one. This is why we have, and then of course the industry is not doing a good job of recruiting and retaining the next generation of truckers. That's one of the things that's sorely plaguing us, that we're just not dealing with that as well. So we've got a generation leaving out. We're not doing nothing about recruiting this next generation of truck drivers.
Yeah, when you talk about culture, that's important, right? You want to be an employer of choice. You want people to be able to come and feel valued, feel heard, feel respected, and then they stick around. And if you think you're saving money by paying them $1 an hour less or whatever that figure is, think about the amount that you invested to attract, recruit, and bring them on board, right? Those transactions have cost associated with it. It costs a lot of money to hire an operator. And so, take your time and think about that. You can cycle through 2 or 3 and 4 and run the bill up just as much as you could have, paid somebody a little extra to keep them satisfied, happy, and engaged.
Absolutely. All right. Number 7, regulatory compliance issues. The trucking industry is subject to numerous regulations, including safety standards, hours of service rules, and environmental regulations. Failing to comply with these regulations can result in fines, legal issues, and operational disruptions. Mr. Smith.
Well, I can say you do not want to play with those. I've I've had situations where I've pulled over and I was put out of service and had to fix the issue before they would put me in service, and that took 3 years to get off my record, which affects the insurance. And you really want to stay in compliance, and you want to read up on compliance, and not just I don't think anybody really has read up on what it is to be compliant and what the regulations are, regulatory, what they are. And because I didn't even know it until I got pulled over and I started to read this stuff, and I was like, oh wow, maybe I should have known about these things. So having and dealing with a compliance officer, somebody that can help you with safety and compliance, is very important, because it'll save you money. Getting put out of service is very expensive, because you could be put out of service for a day or X amount of days. Now you're losing revenue. So just read up on compliance, safety and compliance, and know what it is to, put a program together for your company so that you are staying in compliance. That's what I have to say, because I wish I would have done that day one, because I wouldn't have had the issues that I had.
Well, one of the things that I've always taught and talked about in my courses is there's 3 main areas, 3 hats that have to be worn in a trucking company, that must be worn, or your business is not going to succeed. One of them is someone to manage and run the operations, someone to sell, and someone to manage and oversee safety and compliance. If those 3 hats aren't worn professionally and at the highest, your trucking company just will not succeed. I made the fatal mistake my first time coming into trucking. I didn't take this part serious. I didn't know. And I would say, the great, what's my saying, Malcolm? You got to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
The greatest piece of economic wisdom is to know what you don't know. I didn't know that I didn't know about trucking. I didn't know how heavily regulated the industry was. I didn't know about DOT shutting my truck down and shutting it down at the scale. And now I'm losing money. I'm now my service level is just ridiculously horrible. I'm not fulfilling my obligation to my clients, to my customers, because I'm not getting the load delivered. Why? Because of safety and compliance stuff we try to skirt around. And again, this is one of the reasons that trucking companies fail. So and no one teaches this. No one teaches this. So one of the things that we're going to be, matter of fact, I was having a conversation yesterday, Malcolm and I. We have a gentleman who is a high-level expert in compliance and safety. We're going to be doing an interview with him, and just talking about some of these things and issues that cause trucking companies to get shut down, put out of service, and things that you can do to regulate that and fix that. Any other thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, I applaud you all for bringing him on. That is a costly set of rules and regulations, and as folks are going through getting authorities and real happy, and they're checking all those blocks, all those certifications and assurances. You're telling the federal government, when you check that block, yeah, I've read the FMCSA and I've read the US DOT regulation, and we get, kind of check happy on that application. We send our $300 in, and we got
No
us a
doubt.
number, and we think we're going good.
Oh, we're ready to go.
And then very shortly thereafter, they start talking about what's your drug and alcohol program, or
Exactly.
how are you monitoring
Exactly.
hours of service?
Exactly.
And so, yeah, you definitely spend some time with that expert and make sure that the folks know you can check that block if you want to, but you have just told the federal government that you agree and understand.
Yeah, and just having the whole compliance. What is it? This is a heavily regulated industry. You don't, this is, I call this big boy business. This is big boy, big girl business. You know what I mean? This is, it takes money to get out here and do this. And there are no shortcuts to success. All right. Number 8, limited customer base. Wow. Trucking companies that fail to diversify their customer base and over-reliance on a single customer or type of cargo may find it difficult to survive when that customer leaves or cargo demand drops. Malcolm, I know you have some experience in this area.
Yes, I do. So in dump trucking, we do asphalt. Asphalt is probably one of the easiest jobs because a lot of times you may be out there 8 hours, you may get lucky and do 2 loads. So you're sitting getting paid by the hour. But the thing about asphalt, it shuts down when it gets cold. You can't lay asphalt when the temperature is lower than 45 degrees. So my first 2 years, we did a lot of asphalt heavily because we loved it. But then truck will be sitting for 3 months come November, from November all the way to February, sometimes a little March. And so I was like, something has to, I'm still seeing trucks moving. Why mine's not moving? What I learned was you have to diversify around September, or if you're going to do asphalt around September, if you have one truck, you may want to start looking for other materials that will run in the winter, such as gravel, such as anything rock is going to run in the winter, sand, dirt, as long as it doesn't get wet, because if it gets wet, it takes about 2-3 days to dry. But you want to start diversifying. Even concrete plants, they need the materials to make the concrete. So they will, you can haul for them all the time. But yeah, learning to really diversify your customer base in dump trucking is very important because your truck will sit for 4 months and you'll be looking up. I hope you put your pennies up because that 4 months is gonna hurt. So, but this is one of the biggest things that has really helped. When I talk to my accountant, I look at our revenue, it really 10x our revenue just from not sitting for 4 months, that being able to continue. Now, are you going to get the best rates during that time? No, but you'll still be able to pay your drive. You'll still be able to put a little money in your pocket, pay your bills, and you keep the wheels running. So that diversifying is really a big thing in dump trucking because it will kill your business if you don't.
Well, I tell you, one of the things that we see commonly, and I'm going to quickly tell the story, and I talk about this in my class too as well. People get into the trucking industry, and there's this thing about perception. It's funny. And this shows you the importance of knowing how to manage and run a business, how to market and sell your business. I've seen often someone come into trucking, they are get hooked up with a broker somewhere and they're making a delivery, or they're making a delivery somewhere and they get a connection. Let's say if I get a connection with Brother Ferdinand, Mr. Risco, who's the head of logistics at ABC Shipper, ABC manufacturer. And he's a logistics manager. He sees me coming there to drop stuff off or pick up or something. And he decides, hey, well, you know what? You build a relationship, and he decides to give you a little business. Hey, you know what? I'm going to give you some business. Get your own authority. Come see me, man. I'll give you some business. Or wherever, or you have your own authority. And you through a connection, through a relationship, Mr. Risco decides he likes you. He's going to give you some work. So you go out and you get ready and he gives you some work, and then he starts to give you more work, or there's more. And then you bring a couple more drivers on, or you go buy a couple more trucks. And then Mr. Risco's giving you more work, and then you go buy more trucks. And now you're running 5-10 trucks, and Mr. Risco's keeping you booming. He's got you booming, and you're rolling, and the world will look at you and say, man, Kevin's got a successful trucking company over there. He's doing well. He's a trucking expert. He knows trucking. Da, da, da. He's got 10 trucks. He's making a ton of, oh man, you went and bought the house and you got the nice cars and you just, boy, you living the life. You're doing well. And it is perceived that you have a successful business, you're doing well, and you're the trucking guru. So Kevin comes by one day and finds out, they said, Mr. Risco's not there no more. What? What you mean? He's gone. So now Bob is there. Bob is the new logistics manager. And guess what? Bob doesn't know you. Bob may not like you. Bob may have another agenda. And guess what? Bob starts giving that work to his buddy or someone else. And what we come to ultimately learn about Kevin still didn't know how to run his company. Kevin still didn't know how to go ahead and market it and sell his company. Kevin didn't know as much about trucking as we thought he did. So now what's happening is Kevin's struggling to make the truck notes. Kevin's struggling to keep the trucks moving. 3, 4, 5 months, they repoing the trucks. I've seen it happen a million times. That's an over-reliance on a single customer. And on what I've learned, and a lot of the large corporations will tell you, is that no one single customer should be any more than 20% of your overall customer base. No one single customer should be any more than 20% of your overall customer base. You must learn to sell and market and go directly to shippers and diversify. Do not rely on one customer. It's one thing to get going, to get to building your company around it, but when that business goes away, as Malcolm just alluded to, when it goes away, you're done. It's a good foundational piece, and nobody's going to turn down the business if someone's giving it to us, but you have to diversify and you must prepare. You got to learn how to sell, and that's really what it boils down to. Any thoughts on that before we move on, gentlemen?
No, I think you hit it you square on, right? But you do have to plan a little bit, right?
Yes.
And so as you're developing that relationship with him, you don't program it. If he says, "Hey, I'm gonna run with you for a year," well, you program that revenue for 5, 6 months, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And then so anything after that becomes icing on the cake. But that requires you with that good leadership, that good business planning, that good access to capital, all of those things that we've been talking about still come into play on how you manage and grow your business.
I have this thing that's a part of our webinar, a part of the relationship selling. I have this philosophy. It's called 3 up, 3 down. 3 up, 3 down is it for just that very situation. Any company that you go into, you have a contact. I need to know 3 people above that person and 3 people below that person. That way I have relationships within the company, and my business is not predicated on a relationship with a single person. And that's called 3 up and 3 down. We'll teach that in the webinar.
Another thing on this, I learned this really makes me remember to always keep selling. I remember when I had a friend, she had got one of her dream jobs, and she was on it. And while she started the job, she was still putting in like her applications and for other jobs. I was like, why are you still like going to interviews? She was like, you never stop interviewing. You just never know what will happen with that job. And that kind of reminded me of when I started business. It was like, you always got to keep some companies in the holster. You always keep selling, always putting your hat, getting in bed with different companies, because that company that you think you're getting a lot of work from, you never know what can happen. And having one truck is even harder to diversify. It's you can only be at one place. You can only,
Right.
You can only haul for one person. So
Right.
you have to constantly keep always selling and keeping companies in your holster just in case stuff happens.
Well, here's a guarantee. And it's pretty much, this is just probably the law. You're not going to keep that one customer forever, for the most part. Something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. It's going to happen. And let me tell you, even the big corporations, man, they'll move on in a heartbeat. Like, you mean nothing to them. They could make you a multi-million-dollar business, but something happens and the board decides whatever, and we're making some changes, we're making some cuts. Man, you're going without them blinking. It's not even a big deal. So
yeah, I tell my folks, business development is like the hose, right? You turn the water on, you don't get water instantly.
Right.
And then if you turn it off and you turn it back on, then you've got that gap of air, right?
Right.
Business, if you don't want that gap of air, you got to keep selling. And I know you're going to talk about that during the webinar, not only to continue to sell, but how to do it and how to do it effectively.
Right.
Business development never, ever, ever stops.
That's right. That's right. Awesome. Number 9, equipment and maintenance breakdowns. Regular maintenance of trucks is essential for safety and efficiency. Unexpected breakdowns or the inability to keep vehicles in good condition can lead to costly repairs, delays, and dissatisfied customers.
PM program, putting up money. The rule for me is whatever we make, I'm putting 30% up for maintenance. That's just it's maintenance is gonna. It's not if, it's when it happens. It's coming. It's gonna happen, man. Break the tires from just the smallest things, sensors, and just it's so many things that you will never. It's like you fix this, it's something else you're gonna have to fix, and then something else. And you're like, man, I just replaced that a year ago. Yeah, you're gonna replace it again. It's just, especially in our game, we're putting 18, 19 tons on a truck. Like we just had to replace a suspension system in one of the trucks because it's just the nature of the game, man. You have to have money prepared for, or you will get into the hole because you start using credit cards, you start robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then it's getting ugly. Then like that's when your business is starting to you're in the red and you're operating in the red, and it's hard to get out of that.
Now this goes back to the very first thing we talked about that Mr. Risco elaborated on, is planning. And this is a part of planning, knowing that this is an expense, knowing that this is one of the things that sucks up capital, that cash. Well, we talked about the cash flow, and this being a black hole for capital and cash. This is one of those things. This is fuel, equipment maintenance. People don't understand. When you're buying used trucks, I have a whole piece in my classes. I talk about trucks breaking down. And I had a gentleman that the first trucking company I ever worked for, the owner of the company told me, he said, young man, he said, when you get in the truck, you got to have deep pockets. He said, you're going to always you're going to always spend money. You're either going to be paying a bank or a finance company for financing you a new truck, or you're going to always be paying a mechanic to fix one. But you're going to always spend money on equipment as long as you have it. It's just a matter of time before it's breaking down or something's going on. So the most disciplined truckers and companies I've seen, they have a maintenance fund. They put aside money, keep money there, because if the trucks aren't moving, you aren't making money. It's just that simple. So taking care of your equipment, keeping it up and running, preventive maintenance. And like we just read, if the trucks are broken down, you can't service your customers, and you have enough breakdowns, guess what? Customers are leaving. They don't care. That's your problem. So this is one of those things where this is one of the reasons why trucking companies fail.
And the maintenance side of, I look at it as like NASCAR with the pit crew. You're gonna have a good mechanic, but if that mechanic takes 2 weeks to fix any problem, you're losing money. Like, so having a great team of mechanics and having multiple, like that mechanic your go-to may not be available. Having another one that is doing good work. That's pit crew. I look at it as like a pit crew. How fast can you get me in and out with quality work?
Yeah.
So
That's good. That's good advice. That's good advice. All right.
That's a great one. Coupled with his 30%, right? You know, whatever revenue you've got coming in is got to be some percentage planned for maintenance, right? It's labor and maintenance are your two biggest expenses, and you need to plan accordingly.
And number 10, and I'm going to go in on this one, failure to embrace technology. Trucking companies that do not adopt modern technologies such as route optimization, telematics, fleet management systems may face inefficiencies and struggle to remain competitive. Now, I find that the majority, and I mean the vast majority of owner-operators and small fleet owners are running their businesses still with little to no technology. I find that there's just so many owner-operators. There's some softwares out here that I recently just showed my cousin. I was just, I was like, man, let me show you this. He's been driving for I don't know how many years. He's never seen a piece of software technology. And it was a very affordable, inexpensive. And when I showed him what it does, he was like, oh my God. I was like, bro, how are you? I was talking to a gentleman who's been in the industry for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, got trucks. And so I asked him about how he's managing his company. And people are so funny. Oh, no, I'm good. I got something. He's still using spreadsheets, still using Excel spreadsheets, and they think they're doing something. And I was like, no, man, no, man. The game has changed. If you don't embrace some form of technology, you're behind. You're way behind. You are functioning at a dinosaur level, at a prehistoric level, and you will not be able to compete in today's market. There are softwares, and we're going to be showcasing and reviewing different types of trucking technology and softwares and dispatch softwares and things of that nature on the Truck Stop podcast. So you all can look forward to that at some point in the future. So finally, to navigate these challenges, successful trucking companies prioritize careful financial management. They invest in driver recruitment and retention strategies. They stay abreast of regulatory changes and embrace technology to enhance efficiency and safety. Additionally, building strong relationships with clients and focusing on customer satisfaction are crucial for sustained success in the trucking industry. Any thoughts? Any thoughts there, gentlemen, on any of these things we just talked about? Any final points that you'd like to make to our audience?
Yeah, well, first, Mr. Smith and Mr. Reed, I appreciate you, allowing me to spend some time with you today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. I really hope that your listeners see the value in these gems that you are dropping. You just laid the top 10 down on them, and you just saved somebody hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, either in mistakes and time, or the ability to generate some new revenue. So hopefully the folks that are out here listening understand the value of the truck stop. I appreciate it. I always tell my transportation, distribution, and logistics clients that they need to tap in. So hopefully they'll see this and tap in. But thanks for allowing me to spend a little time with you and talk about these very critical topics.
It's been a pleasure. I'd like to hear from our viewers. If you all could comment, tell us the things that you see, things that you find that are reasons why you all think trucking companies, because there's more than just those 10. Those are just our top 10. There's a whole lot of other reasons. Comment and tell us what your thoughts are on reasons why you've seen trucking companies go out of business and why you've seen them struggle to succeed or stay in business. Give us your thoughts and feedback. Also, I'd like to again remind our viewers of our upcoming webinar. We have a webinar again on February the 17th. I'm sorry, March 17th. And it is called Relationship Selling and How to Bid on Trucking Contracts. It will be hosted by myself, Mr. Risco, and Mr. Smith. We are going to be going in and diving, and let me tell you some of the things you're going to learn how to do. You're going to learn relationship selling techniques, how to bid on large corporate contracts, crafting an effective sales pitch. We're going to teach you how to set up a sales program for your company, how to leverage the technology tools for bidding. We're going to teach the things that you need to know, how to go out and how to sell directly to shippers, what you need to say, how you need to do it, what large corporations are looking for, how to prepare for bids, what a bid actually looks like, and what are some of the tools that you can use for spot market rates and for bidding on larger opportunities. What does that look like? Because I find that a lot of people, they're stuck on the low boards because they don't know how to go directly at shippers. What do they need to say? How to get in those doors? So we're going to teach you how to do that, how to go out and sell directly to shippers and how to prepare for bids, how to get in the door, and whatever that opportunity looks like, we're going to prepare you how to go and approach it and attack that opportunity. So that's going to be coming up. And those who should attend, considering attending, truckers and owner operators, freight brokers and dispatchers, transportation business owners, and anybody looking to elevate their trucking business to new heights. The link is in the description box below. And I'm excited about that and about the knowledge that we'll be sharing during that episode, during that webinar. Also, send us, inquire about our Fix My Trucking Company episode that's coming up. We have a segment of the truck stop called Fix My Trucking Company. And we want to hear from someone around the country that is struggling, that's bumping their head in the industry. They're just having challenges, and you need professional experience help to get over those hurdles and challenges. Myself, our team of coaches or experts will be available to assess and come online and assist you with fixing your trucking company. So you can reach us. So you got to email us at thetruckstop19 at gmail.com. Again, that's thetruckstop19 at gmail.com. Send us a message and tell us why you're struggling, what you're struggling with, and help us to understand why we should select you. And then we're going to bring experts. We're going to assess your situation, and we're going to bring myself and possibly some other experts on in the areas where you're having those pain points, and we're going to help to fix whatever your issues are. This is a new segment that we have coming up on the Truck Stop. It's called Fix My Trucking Company. So reach out to us at thetruckstop19 at gmail.com and let us know what you're struggling with and how we might be able to help you. Gentlemen, any thoughts before we part and get out of here for the day?
No, I think we've given them enough gems today. Like this was a good episode, and I'm glad to be on with Mr. Ferdinand Risco. It's been an honor, been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, he's big time, dog. For real.
Yeah.
He's gonna be modest with it, but the brother's big time. He's like I said, just the wealth of knowledge and experience that Mr. Risco brings to the table. And again, we're going to be talking with him more about government contracts and how to pursue and go directly after government contracts. So we're going to dive into that at some point in the near future. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Appreciate you all joining us today for the top 10 reasons why trucking companies fail. Peace.